Whether you're a rookie or a seasoned vet, there are plenty of players who have a lot on the line heading into this season.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jessica Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. Today, I thought that we could take a look to see what's at stake, who has the most at stake this upcoming season, because you have seasoned veterans like Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee settling in. You've got Zayne Parekh hoping to make it as a full-time NHLer. And of course, Dustin Wolf looking to beat the odds once again, as well as Connor Zary. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Calgary Flames every day once the season starts back up. But right now, we're cruising with 3 times a week, and hopefully this is the week we get some Anderson updates or a Connor Zary extension done. I've only been saying that since April. But let's talk about Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee, because to me, these are two players that are seasoned NHLers. They came over in January and just didn't have a great time in Calgary, finishing up their season. It was bad. Both of them played 30 some odd games, and the settling in just never happened. And I understand that there are obviously extenuating circumstances. There's, reasons why players don't immediately drop into a system, and like, this isn't plug and play. Not everyone is going to have immediate chemistry. But Joel Farabee has years 4, 5, and 6 left on his contract heading into this year. In the 31 games he played with the Flames, he had 3 goals and 6 points. That's pretty tough. And he said it himself. I know I had a bad year. I sucked. And yeah, when you're making $5 million a year, I would kind of expect you to hopefully at least have close to 10, 12 goals in 30 games. I don't know. Is that a reasonable expectation? But we know that it took a while for Frost and Farabee to settle in. Frost was an RFA this summer, and he signed a 2-year, $4.375 million extension. There's a short leash there. You aren't committed long-term to him. And I think realistically, Frost is going to be fighting for that 2C spot with Zary. In 32 games, Frost had 3 goals and 12 points. It's abundantly clear both of them need to be better. I think that Frost will be the player that really feels the impact of the change of scenery, just going off of what we've seen in those 30 some odd games. I think that he knew that his name was on the trading block for a while and that it was bound to happen, so it finally did. So that's, the anxiety of that is out of the way. Settled in, has found housing, has found a new truck, has found what he needs to do to get into a routine. And we know that athletes are creatures of habits. So I think out of the two of these guys, I want to say that Farabee has a more productive season simply because he's making $5 million. But I do think that we're going to see an increase in production from Frost. I think that the competition between him and Zary to get that second center spot is huge. I think it's going to be fire for both of them. And Farabee has a lot to prove as well. I think that he knows that coming in here and only putting up 6 points isn't a good look. So there is drive, there is passion, there's, the hunger for success. And both of them, like, the stakes are high for these two, because the fact that there are 3 years left on Farabee's deal at $5 million a year. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked that if at some point down the road, maybe in year 2 or I guess year 5 of 6, we see Craig Conroy maybe say, we could flip him at the deadline. If that is something. And Frost is they're only committed to Frost for 2 more years. That's not a long time. And I don't see a long-term contract happening at that point in time either. So I'm very intrigued to see how both of these players do this season, and knowing that the pressure is on to perform. You have a very different style of coaching than you have experienced in Philadelphia. You have a very different room than you had in Philly. And I think that there's a lot of positives here. And if they can take it and run with it and use it to their advantage, they might find themselves less under the microscope, and they won't be as harshly criticized as some of their peers. Personally, I want to see at least a 17-plus goal season from Farabee. Realistically, I'd like to see 20-plus. But I think you have to manage those expectations. And for Frost, I want to see him obviously put up as many goals as possible. But I think that we're going to see a lot of rotating between him and Zary in that spot. And really the second, third, and fourth line centers as well. Outside of Kadri at number 1, there's plenty of room to play. So I'm hopeful that that competition will, get him back up to 15 goals. Would be nice. And coming up next, we are going to talk about 2 newcomers here on Locked On Flames. Connor Zary is still without an extension, and Dustin Wolf is up and eligible for a contract extension. So what exactly is at stake for these guys heading into next season here on Locked On Flames? Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's your 401ks, your properties, or investments, and you don't have to have the full picture. You can end up with leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal financial tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization, my goodness, of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I think it's a huge, 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 huge advantage and must to have a clear idea of what your financials look like, because it's not just about making sure these bills are paid. It's about what can you do in 20 years from now? Are you going to be able to retire? Or what's the situation look like if you find yourself in a pinch? Don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off of your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are following me on Twitter and Blue Sky at JustBelmosto. Connor Zary still being unsigned really rubs me the wrong way. And I get it. I think that both sides have a point, but I don't think that Zary's team has much leverage. And it is very easy to think of players in recent years who have held out either right before the start of camp or into training camp, and how it kind of soured the relationship or how it impacted their play in the season. Just last year was Jeremy Swayman. Granted, two different players, but at the same time, there's still a holdout with an RFA. And the fact that they're just $1 million apart and Conroy isn't budging tells me that he is like laying down the law. He doesn't want to be seen as a pushover and have more players hold out, knowing full well that he will cave. But Zary has no leverage after missing significant time with his injuries. And I feel like there has been just like this complete like 180 in a season of their plan with Zary. I thought that he was going to be signing a Matt Coronado like extension at the end of not this past season, but the season before. That's what I expected. Had this season gone differently. But I also think had he had a better season, he would have been signed by now. He has to prove to this team that he is ready to commit and he is doing everything in his power to steal or earn that 2C spot. I want to see it. I think that they're still going to be toying with the idea of him being a winger rather than a center. I think that I like him better as a center, but let's see how the season starts and where we're at, because we don't have any idea where he's at in terms of rehabilitation, if he's going to even be good to go for camp. I would assume so. But what is that? Where are we? Where are we in any of this? It just does not feel like there's any progress being made. And I think what's very difficult here for me is saying like yes, get your bag, but at the same time, like you have to know your place. Because how many games did you miss with 2 injuries to the same knee and basically 6 to 8 weeks apart? It feels like they were very close together. And I think for me, what I want is I want to see Zary go out there and prove everyone wrong and say, I can do this. I can stay healthy. Oh, you think I'm only good at playing a winger? Guess what? I'm going to dominate as a center. There is so much room for him, and he has to prove it and prove it to the Flames organization that he is in their long-term plan. But it certainly doesn't feel like that right now. And speaking of a long-term plan and a guy that you want to keep locked up for really, you're hoping the rest of his career, is of course Dustin Wolf. I don't care what anyone says. He should have won the Calder. He dragged the Flames to the finish line and kept them in the race. Lane Hutson, great, good for you, congratulations, but this was Dustin Wolf's year. So with Dustin Wolf, there is always the question of, well, is this the year he finally regresses? We're going to see a setback. And up to this point, it has not showed itself. He has excelled at every step of his journey in his development, and I love that for him. But if we do see a little bit of regression and a little bit of a sophomore slump, we shouldn't be overly worried about it. It is a huge adjustment period going from the AHL to obviously to the NHL. And he proved that he could do that last year. And I think this season, the defense, nothing about the defense has me more confident than I was last year. And if he played as well as he did with traffic cones in front of him, I think he'll be okay this year. I would like to see the defense work just a little bit harder and make his life a little bit easier. But we can't always get what we want. And I'm hoping for Wolf that he doesn't face that significant of a setback. And I hope Zary, same thing for Zary. Both of these players, like Zary is hoping to earn a long-term deal, either with Calgary or someone else. And then Wolf is eligible for an extension. And you're hoping something gets done there. And he's playing for that this year. And he's an RFA next summer. So do you have back-to-back RFA situations hit you in the face? The Flames have not had that in a very long time. And I did not expect Zary to be the last unsigned RFA. I think both of them have to take steps forward, or I guess for Wolf, stay consistent where you were and stay healthy, be on top of it, and prove it. Just prove it. Even if you don't, I don't think this team's a playoff team this year, but if they can stick around the way that they did this year, I would say that's a good sign. And that they're closer to being a more competitive team than maybe we think. And whether it's Zary on a 3-year bridge deal or Dustin Wolf coming in on an expiring RFA contract, they both are playing for the same thing. And both of them, I would say more so Zary, has a lot left to prove. Wolf, you know what you're getting. And I'm looking forward to another great season from him. And coming up next, we are going to talk about the one and only Zayne Parekh and just what he has to do in order to make that lasting impression. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. It does not need to be said that Zayne Parekh is ready for the NHL. Sending him back to the OHL would be a disadvantage to him. Sure, he may not come in and immediately succeed at the NHL level, but that shouldn't be the expectation. He played 1 game last year with the Flames. Okay? That's it. And he scored. But realistically, you're hoping to take this year in a year that you're likely not making the playoffs, use this time to move his development along, to take that next step. He has done everything he needs to succeed and prove his worth in the O. There is no reason to send him back there. He should be up with the Flames, playing consistently. Even if they do the whole, okay, you're just gonna, shadow the team for a little bit, so you realize what being an NHLer is really about. It's not just all private jets and hot tubs and going out there to play in sunny Florida, like whatever. And show him what the grind is, what the culture is. I'm sure there's some sort of mentor, even if it's unofficial mentor program. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm sure he has a mentor within the organization. And that will show him the ropes. And I think that he has full potential to be a full-time NHLer and really be a staple to this Flames D-core moving forward. I think it would be scrumptious to work our way back to a strong, deep defensive group. And you start with that by having Parekh, Ball, and Uyghur. Anderson is not part of the long-term picture. Pahal, Bean, Miramonov, Grushnikov, these guys are likely not going to be in the mix after this year or whenever their contract expires. I think one might have like this year and next year. But there's progress being made. Rebuilds don't happen overnight. There are players in the organization now that are ready to take that jump to the NHL level, but they can't just waltz in and expect a spot to be theirs. They have to come and take it. Why should you be in the lineup over Nepo baby Jake Bean? Why should you be on the power play instead? Why should Connor Zary be the 3C and have Frost at the 2C? You have to give them tangible evidence to justify their decisions. And say you do get bumped down a spot. Okay. You're playing. I do not think Zayne Parekh is a third pairing defenseman by any means, but say that's where we'll start you. A sheltered role, blah, blah, blah. But if he goes out there and proves that, maybe he would be better off with a better defensive partner like Weegar or like Ball, depending on where things are at in the season, then they need to do that. That is the obvious choice. Keeping some, like, we've talked about it a lot on the show, but having a player on a line with elevated players does not mean that player is going to automatically play up to the better players' levels. And I don't think that that's an expectation of anyone on this team, but I would fully expect the Flames to kind of shelter Parekh at some point. And I honestly just want to see him go out there and go bananas with it. Let him play 16 minutes a night. Like, I don't see the harm in that. He has to go out there and learn. And if he takes his lumps, he takes his lumps. We don't know what happens until it happens. And holding players back for the sake of their development and not putting them in those tough situations, I think most of the time does more harm than good. I think that I look at the Flames prospect pool right now, Rory Kearns, Jeremy Poirier, like those two players come to mind. They should have more NHL experience than they have. And Rory Kearns finally made his NHL debut last season. Jeremy Poirier, we're still waiting. And I think that there is potential there. And I don't want the Flames to, no pun intended, but fizzle out and put out their own flames before they even have a real start. I think there's a clear vision and plan with Parekh. But he has to do his part. Like I said earlier, you don't get to just waltz in and take a spot, or that spot's not automatically yours. You have to work for it. And that's something that I think all of these players should remember, because if they're not afraid to scratch Kuzmenko and Sharon Govich, they're certainly not afraid to scratch you. And you have to remember that you're not better than anyone. You are all going in looking to make the team and hoping you do something that is strong enough and sets you apart. And you leave a very good impression. And ultimately, all of these players have a lot to show this season. And I'm hopeful for them. I would like to see this Zary extension wrapped up sooner rather than later. The closer it gets to camp, the more concerned I become. And it would be severely detrimental for them to hold out beyond camp. And that'll do it for me here, folks, today on Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you are having a fantastic week and getting through the off season. And I will see you all tomorrow. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. And I'll catch you there. Bye-bye.